Afternoon. Welcome to the Retail Forum. Thank you very much for attending. My name is Matt Jackson. I lead the sales organization for US for retail and consumer goods, and really thankful that you're here today, both at the conference but also attending this afternoon. We've had some great sessions, I know, already today, some great time where we've been able to get to know each other a little bit more, which is a huge byproduct of this show. So let me just give you a quick rundown of our agenda today. So we'll start off with a keynote by Rob Saker. Many of you know Rob, who leads our go-to-market for retail, consumer goods, and manufacturing. We'll have a keynote by Alfredo from P&G, fantastic leader for that organization. We'll have a fireside chat with one of our partners and the person who leads our partner organization, Jen Zavacky. Next, we will have an executive panel with 4 fantastic speakers that we'll introduce to you a little bit later, some customer awards, and then closing remarks. So we started a little bit late, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and we'll get going this morning, or this afternoon.
Thank you, Matt.
But before I forgot, we definitely want to thank our sponsors, Avanade and Accenture, for helping make this session in particular possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you all for coming. Good afternoon. I'm going to hit the click for advance here. So this is one of my favorite sessions of the year. I get to meet with customers. I don't like being up on stage. I like to do the act out here. I'm going to meet with customers throughout the year, and I get to talk about what we're seeing with the AI and data and how to affect it within the industry. But it's always very tactical. It's about how do we apply it to specific business situations. This is that one moment of the year where you get to take a step back and just pause and think about the changes that have been happening and that inflection point and think about what's going to happen going forward. That's the greatness of Data and AI Summit. Customers talking about what they're working on, getting inspired, us sharing what we're seeing out there. So hopefully, I can share some thoughts that might inspire you to take back home. A lot of energy in the industry this year. Retail and consumer goods, the interest in investment in generative AI is immense. I think a big reason for this is that generative AI favors process-led industries. And process-led industries are exactly what our industries are. Every single aspect of our business, whether you're a consumer goods, whether you're a distributor, whether you're a retailer, whether you're a restaurant, those processes are known and measured and metriced. And when we know that, we can use generative AI to drive a lot of efficiency out there. There's a lot of promise. The downside is 90% of the POCs last year didn't advance. There was a lot of bright and shiny objects and pursuit of things there. And why was this? It certainly wasn't because of a lack of interest. C-suite gets it, and they see the potential. They see the promise of it. I think there are some foundational things in terms of how people went to edge cases. They focus on the model, not the data. But fundamentally, if you look at the most recent Gartner hype cycle, we're at the top of the roller coaster, right? We're getting ready to make the plummet. And the question is, how do we, apologize for the groans that have come, to borrow from COVID, how do we flatten the curve, right? What are those types of inflections, those technology things that are coming up that can help us to smooth this out and get to productivity and value from generative AI faster? I think there are 3 things I'm going to talk about today that are truly transformational innovations in the industry. And I won't date myself, but I was an original dot-commer. Nothing is significant since the introduction of the internet that I think is going to potentially change the trajectory of our industry overall. And not only allow us to solve for generative AI, but also to change the trajectory in our industry. So to do this, though, it requires that we unlearn some of the things that we've had as historic, taken for granted rules. So the first rule, we cannot make decisions in real time. Now, when I talk about real time, I want to talk about truly real time. And real time is more than just information from one system going into a lakehouse. Real time to me means that I have full visibility across my entire value chain and context. If you have that visibility, your visibility is only as fast as your slowest point. Now, with the introductions of technology like streaming, we have customers today that are bringing information in and doing a good job. Most retail and consumer goods customers are bringing data in their core systems with low latency. every few seconds, maybe every few minutes. Real time is relative to the problem that you're trying to solve. But we're not doing the nightly batch anymore. This is only part of the story though, right? Think about your supply chain, your value chain, and where the true risk to your business is. The risk is not what happens within your four walls. The risk is at both sides of this chart. If you are in confection and you sell chocolate, your risk is in West Africa with drought and fire and shipping availability. If you are an apparel company and dealing with fashion, your risk is at the far left side with shifts in consumer demand. Our ability to understand and to monitor these trends and to be able to bring that into a real-time view is critical to being able to value this. So in this area, I talk about technology. Streaming was a key thing. The next key technology, Delta sharing. Delta sharing is an open source, secure protocol for sharing information. Delta sharing, I love the phrase, the best ETL is no TL. It's zero copy, zero ETL collaboration. So imagine that I am a company, you have information that I want to use. With Delta sharing, you can expose that to me. I can see the structures and the information without creating a copy. As it's updated on your side, I have visibility to this. So the development cost of design, the latency that's involved in terms of movement of data is gone. As soon as information is changed at the source, it's changed for me. So we've done a few things. With Delta sharing, it's not just sharing between one company and another, it's sharing between different types of data sources. Peer-to-peer data sharing. Easy example, you're a retailer, you're a supplier, you want to share information, potentially to deal with out of stocks. Pretty clear example. ISV partner sharing. You have software as a service. It sits somewhere. You don't want to extract it to bring it into your environment or to reverse ETL to feed it back in. You want to use a Delta share to get real-time visibility to what's happening. Marketplace. That West Africa example. I want to see what the weather is. I want to use a marketplace provider that has weather and have real-time visibility to that. Or perhaps local events. Or perhaps it's point of sale data. Or any number of thousands of different data sets. And lastly, clean rooms. And clean rooms gets overused. If you take one thing away, my pet peeve, clean rooms are overused. Delta sharing is the technology that allows us to securely share information. Clean rooms is when you need confidentiality of the information in what you're sharing. If you don't need confidentiality, you don't need a clean room. But clean room, you have consumer information. I have consumer information. I want to bring this in a way that preserves privacy, that confidentiality. That's what a clean room allows me to do. Allows me to preserve that confidentiality of my information and bring it together. So we think about this, and what are the things that we're doing in this area? We form partnerships with a lot of the leading software as a service providers. Salesforce, SAP, if you're in CPG, Aviva is a big deal. Many of the leading CDP platforms, Amperity, Adobe, Hightouch, Action IQ, and Particle, all using Delta sharing as a way to expose information. Again, zero ETL, zero copy. Think about the marketplace data sets. Hundreds of unique companies, thousands of suppliers that have come on board. Again, the marketplace is where you get data on the context that's happening in the world around us, right? So we have all these providers. So now I go back to my world and I have real-time visibility end-to-end on what's happening within my systems, across my value chain, across the ecosystem, with my SaaS and my marketplace. So that new role, streaming and Delta sharing unlock end-to-end real-time visibility across the value chain. Okay, the next role. We're limited to structured data. Structured data represents only 8% of an enterprise's or information. The vast majority of your information in your enterprise comes in the form of documents and presentations and images and video and audio and all sorts of unstructured and semi-structured information. And yet, what do we focus the majority of our time on? Structured information. Take a look at this video here. So this guy has a mobile application on his phone. In a period of about 15, 20 seconds, He's walking down a grocery aisle in a refrigerated case, mind you, which is especially difficult. And he has captured in 20 seconds all the conditions in the grocery aisle on that refrigerated case. This is our partner, Advantage and Pensa. They've created this technology that allows you to go and capture retail conditions. What used to take 20 to 30 minutes to click, submit, register, step, click, submit, register, 20 seconds. Just walk down and it captures the conditions. AI is allowing them to take unstructured information and turn it into relevant realograms. What are the products that sit on the shelf? Where do they sit on the shelf? And then to turn that into useful information that we can do for planogram compliance, promotion compliance, and other types of things. This is just representative of where the industry is going. We're going to start to see this type of technology extend into all parts of the world. Think about, this is 15, 20 seconds to capture this, but now we're going to have people that are walking in, and we're going to have promotions, and we're going to have what's happening in the outside world. Anywhere we have information or signal, AI is going to allow us to turn that into a relevant signal that we can use to better understand. The cost of acquiring real-time physical conditions is plummeting. How do we take advantage of that? So satellite imagery. We have companies today that are using satellite imagery. West Africa, looking at the farms, and specific farms, what's happening within there, and saying, do I have a risk? And if I have a risk in West Africa, can I source from other parts of the world with enough lead time? They're taking things like shop floor. This is a cheesy poof extractor, right? Inside joke. But instead of trying to take measurements off the machine, can we look at the visual inspection of cheesy poofs that are coming out and say, are they in the right form? If they're not in the right form, let's optimize that setting. That visual inspection using visual indicators. We have people doing predictive maintenance based on auditory signals. Does the machine sound right? And using that to help to optimize when we do maintenance. I showed you the retail example. Consumers. If you go to the industry demo session, you'll see some things that we've done within there. We have customers that are doing in the cosmetic space, capturing millions of images of consumers and how they're applying cosmetics and makeups from around the globe. And they're capturing early signals about what are trends that are happening from the application of makeup. What are early trends in terms of colors and patterns, and how do we market and how do we develop within specific areas there? They're taking unstructured information from consumers and using that to get early indication of how do they do product design and marketing. We announced last week a partnership with Shutterstock. So Shutterstock has a library of 500 million plus images. Now with Shutterstock, you can take these images and you can start to train and tune your models around AI. The demo that we have along the left, we took shoes. I'm a bit of a shoe guy here. So you can select different shoes, put them together, train them, and start to iterate. I want to create more colorful shoes, blue shoes. I want to combine shoe patterns together. Matt Jackson's going to come up later. He loves gold shoes. He loves the flash, right? How do we bring this information and start to ideate around new ideas? Or how do we use this to create marketing copy? Personalized images that you're sending out that have a higher relevance to the person that's watching. Shutterstock's interesting, by the way, in that it's royalty-free. So if you're an apparel company, your risk was always, I wanted to create marketing images, but I needed to have the model rights to use it. No longer a concern with royalty-free images. So the new role. We can leverage all types of data to understand the world around us. And then the third one, and this is probably the most contentious. Enabling decision makers requires an army of analysts between IT and the business. If you think about your organization today, you've got a team of people on IT. You got another people, a team that are in the line of business, the front line, the decision makers. And every one of you has a team of people that sits in between, that know the data, that build the reports, that explain things, right? And your ability to answer questions is based on the skill set of those intermediaries and their capacity, right? So the technology that allows us to do this is Unity Catalog. Again, AI is a pattern recognition and context engine. The pattern recognition comes from the information itself. In this instance, it's structured information. I want to understand the information as it's registered. What Unity Catalog does is it captures the shape and behavior of data. So as data is updated, as data is transformed, we understand the lineage and what's happening. But then critically, as people interact with that data, as they query it, those queries in themselves become data that help us explain the context of that. I mean, what else is a query than the context of how people are using your data? So we take this information, we take data dictionaries and the structured information, and we bring this together. Now, along the right, see an example of Genie Spaces. Genie Spaces is an AI tool that we have built. We took crisp data from our marketplace, its point of sale, through Delta sharing, so we actually don't have it in our environment. We took the context from the queries, we took data dictionaries, we loaded this in, and now you have the ability to go in and answer questions in the language of your business and get the answers. I don't need to go through an analyst intermediary. I can ask this specific question that I'm trying to get to. I can make this smarter by incorporating other models into this. We've built forecasting and incorporated into this. So not just what happened, but what's going to happen. Any other types of models that you can start to think about, this becomes a way to contextualize and help your frontline ask questions and get specific answers. So the new role there, we can provide direct answers to the frontline with AI-powered tools. Now, Albert Einstein created this great phrase, this great term about 100 years ago. He called combinatory play. Other people have taken this and evolved it and talked about combinatory innovation. Combinatory innovation is really this idea that innovation isn't really new to the world. It's a combination of existing technologies that we bring together that unleash new ways of work, new growth. What happens when we bring these three things together, that real-time and zero copy? So now I have real-time visibility end-to-end. I've reduced the friction of acquiring data. I've expanded the aperture of data. And not only have I expanded that aperture of data, but I've also expanded the types. So it's unstructured and semi-structured information. So I can start to understand truly what's happening in the environment around me in the physical way that may have previously been unmeasured. And I can turn this into insights that I can directly power the front line with. I don't have to go through intermediaries. So go back to the value chain. And what do I think is going to happen next? I think the next 18 to 24 months are fairly predictable. We're going to start learning. We're going to get better. We're going to flatten that curve on the hype cycle, and we're going to get some value out quickly. And we're going to do that in a few different ways. First, we're going to focus on efficiency. If you're doing AI today and you're starting off, remove waste and inefficiencies from the process. It's the lowest risk way to get value out there and to get you value out quickly. The second area, as you think about AI, on this progression, is what are things that we're doing that we can do better? How do we do copy generation? Conversational chat, call center, semi-automation or full automation is a huge opportunity to improve the experience and to drive efficiencies. Then we start getting in new areas of revenue growth. The product development that I was talking about with like shoe or furniture or apparel. Product concept design, try on me apparel. Imagine that you could go and say, I want to buy this outfit, but I want to see what it looks like on me before I buy it. It's going to take a little bit of time because there's some work that we got to do to get there, but it's within the next 2 years. But what about the things that you want to come back in a year and say, I was completely wrong on? What are those moonshots? I think there are a few that are out there. I got a cool rocket ship that goes up here I don't want to miss. Look at that rocket ship. Isn't that cool? So first, I think we're going to see a wave of startups in the industry. that build technology on top of data that they don't have. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. Think about the next SAP that comes out that doesn't have the data underneath, like just the logic and the analytics and the workflow on top of that. And they're using delta sharing types of technologies. We're already starting to see companies like this, but I think we're going to see a lot. I think real one-to-one personalization to the edge. Right now we talk about personalization. We create copy and images that are applicable to a few thousand people. Listen, you show me a middle-aged white guy from Georgia that likes schnauzers and hiking in the mountains, I am clicking on that email, right? That relevance of taking the knowledge of who that human is and give them copy and images to increase that conversion rate. The cost of doing this is plummeting. We're going to see this. The real-time physical awareness via AI, the digitization of the physical world. You saw some of the things with Pensa and Advantage. I think we're going to see a lot more in this space. But how do we capture these real-time signals and bring that in to better understand the context? A great example, if anyone wants to do a startup, apparel retailers, they don't know where their product is until it shows up in the Port of Long Beach. There's a whole 3-month period of time before that they don't have visibility. Wouldn't it be great if I could just snap a picture of a container before it goes out and start to track these types of things? These are the types of problems that we're going to start to see solved. End-to-end visibility across the supply chain, including risk. I've seen a few players in this space. Nobody really stand up and take it. And I think the last one, this is truly the stretch. This is probably a 5-year. But an AI going from creative to additive manufacturing. I want to go in and design my shoe with AI, and then I want that shoe to be made with additive manufacturing and shipped to me. Truly one-to-one bespoke manufacturing in certain areas. You can hold this to me. Hold me to this. That's my session here. Hopefully it was interesting. Again, thank you for coming out to the summit this week. I want to take this time, thank you. I'm really pleased we have a world-class lineup of speakers and panelists today. It's my privilege to introduce, that I come and speak, Alfredo Colas. Alfredo joins us from Procter & Gamble, where he is the SVP of Data Analytics and AI. Alfredo, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rob. Incredibly intriguing vision of the near future. As Rob said, my name is Alfredo Colas, and I guess what a better place for someone that leads data analytics and AI than the Data and AI Summit. So thank you, Databricks, for creating a summit just for me. So I truly, truly appreciate that. And I'll try to talk about how we're using all these elements to drive value and growth for Procter & Gamble. Starting by what is Procter & Gamble, many of you may not know the name itself, but I'm pretty sure that all of you have at least one, if not many, of these brands at your homes. Starting with a very humble origin, selling candles in Cincinnati 186 years ago, we have created a portfolio of daily use brands that play primarily in the categories of cleaning, hygiene, and health. And one of the common criteria across all these products and these categories is areas where product performance makes a significant difference in the decision the consumer makes about the purchase. As we think about our strategy and our vision, we believe in improving the lives of world consumers in small but meaningful ways every day, now, and for generations to come. And we do that with a strategy where we continue to grow the markets together and in partnership with our retail partners. We believe in delighting consumers. That comes to life in what we call our integrated growth strategy, which has 5 specific choices that build on each other to create excellent performance. First one is portfolio. I already talked about it. Second is about superiority in product, in packaging, in communication, in the retail execution in the stores that Rob was talking about, the superior value we want to provide to both customers and consumers of our products. We believe in driving productivity across the whole supply chain and our operations in order to free up the investments or the money to be able to afford everything else. We believe that we have to continuously to reinvent ourselves. We have been doing that for almost 200 years. And I would just want to highlight that if you look small there in the areas, one of the areas where we want to continue to disrupt ourselves is data and analytics. We're very much there at the top of the strategy of the company. And finally, our organization. One of our CEOs said over 80 years ago that our employees were our most important asset. And we continue to believe this and execute against this every day of the year. We want an organization that feels empowered, that is agile and is accountable to deliver these excellent results. This strategy has been working very well for the last 5 years, and we continue to double down on it, even if the situation around us continue to evolve and change. Supply chain and environmental sustainability are two areas where we are making a disproportionate focus. Today, we don't have enough time to talk about it. We also continue to insist in the importance of building digital fluency across our organization. And of course, we want to create a superior employee value equation in order to attract, retain, and develop the best talent in the industry. As we move into our specific world of data and analytics, this is our winning aspiration. This is what we declare to the company. This is what we declare to my full team. And that is that we want to be a source of competitive advantage and value creation for the company. We do that by enabling everyone, every employee, every business unit, make better decisions, faster decisions, powered by data and algorithms. And then we describe ourselves as the analytical heart of P&G. We debated for a long time whether we should be the brain or we should be the heart. In the end, I think we went for the heart because the same way as blood flows from all over the body into the heart, gets pumped and cleaned by the lungs, and then goes back across the body, that's exactly the way we think our ecosystem. We receive data, and Rob, we still don't have data sharing with everyone, but we receive data from all our internal systems and a lot of third parties. We bring it to life in our core data lake. Today, technically, is a lake house, but we haven't changed the internal commercialization name. It took me enough time to get everyone to recognize the name. And then what we provide is tool sets, capabilities, best practices to enable anyone in the company to go and publish that data, what we call data pipelines, make it available for others to activate and use. That's an area where Databricks is all across our ecosystem, but we have brought a Unity catalog over the last 2 years, and it's making a big difference in simplifying and accelerating the activation of data. This activation happens again through a number of platforms. First one is descriptive analytics, where we enable every employee to be able to explore, create reports, dashboards, and share with others. Similarly, we have created a platform to run all our AI and our Gen AI capabilities, and I'll talk about that more in a second. And lastly, we also use our core data lake, our data pipelines, to share data with multiple other systems. Transactional systems, multiple products across the company that use the information we provide to run every single process, to run every single decision that happens in the company. So what happens with AI at P&G? Around 3 years ago, we already had a very, very successful data science program in the company. It was creating a very, very significant amount of value. At the same time, the creation of machine learning models in our company was very artisanal. High quality, slow, and expensive. We needed to find a way to maintain that quality or improve it, reduce the cost, and dramatically accelerate the speed. As we thought about it, we needed the equivalent of our manufacturing facilities for products. We needed an AI factory. And that was actually our pitch to the company. We told them that if they invested in us, if they allow us to build the AI factory, we would be able to deliver value 10 times faster, would be able to afford algorithms that today, back then, were either too complicated or too expensive to deliver. They agreed with us, so we had to then go and build it. So the first thing we did was to map the life cycle of an algorithm. Look at the different stages they go through, and then all the technologies, all the capabilities that we needed to build to support that acceleration and lower cost. We also had to go back and talk to our organization and change the way we were working. We had to standardize our processes. We invested in the acceleration of Agile, DevOps, from code repositories to code branching strategies to CI/CD pipelines. In exchange for that, what we promised our organization was we were going to simplify their work. We're going to automate a lot of the activities, the toll, the administrative work that they didn't really enjoy anyway, so that they could focus much more of their time in value creation activities. At the same time, we also invested heavily in the increase or the expansion of our AI engineering organization. AI engineers work together with data scientists in the full end-to-end value chain that is needed to bring our models into production and into scale. What are the components of our AI factory? There are 4. The first one is AI Provisioner. And these are all the capabilities that are needed so that data scientists and AI engineers can self-provision automatically all the components, all infrastructure that they need to run an AI project. This is a multi-cloud capability, local, multiple environments, including, of course, our friends in Databricks. Next one is our AI accelerator. These are code libraries. These are samples of code, best practices that they can go, CI/CD pipelines that they can go and reapply to, again, accelerate their speed to value. As we move into AI governance, these are tools that they need for risk assessments, for security, and for observability once your models go into production. And last but not least, AI extensions. And this is a set of toolkits that data scientists can leverage to help them in their process to bring models to production. For example, many times they may need to create a front end so that the user can interact with the model without having to be next to a data scientist or an AI engineer. So we have created toolkits that enable them to create simple websites that integrate automatically with our models with just a few clicks. We have now closed this year 2 of our AI factory, and we have been well above our expectations at the beginning of the program. Massive adoption across the company, maximum adoption across multiple domains, and we continue to invest in the expansion of our existing capabilities and continue to add more capabilities as we start our year 3. Of course, as we were building this, and because we were not busy enough, then December 2022 happened, and then everyone started talking about Gen AI. And the question was, okay, what are you going to do about it? And we decided to take a very similar approach. We decided to expand our definition of our AI factory and create what we call a generative AI platform. This is an abstraction layer running on our tenant, where we provide access to multiple public LLMs in a way that is compliant with our stewardship, with our policies, our security guidelines. On top of that secure layer, we have created multiple products and made available globally across the company. The first one we launched was ChatPG. This was last fall. Incredible success. We have tens of thousands of users coming every day. We have incredible amount of users that permanently have a tab on their browser with ChatPG and helping them in everything they do. And basically, what it helps them to drive personal productivity. It helps them with summarization. It helps them with ideation. They help them access better knowledge documents that they already have. This has actually been a great way to demonstrate that there was true value in building these capabilities. And we have seen massive adoption from across the businesses and actually an increase of demand of more capabilities. So this April, we came up with AskPG. And this allows us to access in a scalable and sustainable way the domain knowledge across all of P&G. So we have AskPG instances for multiple domains. We keep adding new ones every day, and we're seeing an exponential growth of adoption of AskPG. At the same time, we launched ImagePG, which, as you can imagine from the name, allows you to access in multiple external models and create images within the P&G guidelines. As I said before, what is very important for us is that this is not connected to any one model. We are able to switch the models behind the scenes and create a completely transparent experience for our users. At the same time, we're seeing great explosion of demand across multiple other products across the company where they are accessing our platform in a programmatic way and where they really enjoy the fact that all the complexity of managing Gen AI is completely hidden from them. They just only need to worry about setting up an API call into the platform, and the rest is taken care of. Of course, productivity for our developers across the company is a very, very important priority, and we're similarly introducing tools into the daily life of every developer to help them improve their productivity. We have seen also very, very significant improvements, both in terms of quality and quantity of code they are able to deliver. And what is even more important for me, they are happier because they no longer have to go and do a lot of that boring work, and they can really focus in the areas where they truly make a difference. So as I bring this section to a close, a couple or a few takeaways, insights from our work that I hope you can reapply at least in part. The first one is to make sure you're clear on why you're doing this. What are your objectives? How do they connect to the business strategy, the business purpose? And of course, be sure to align that with the leadership of the company. Second one is investing in the organization. And this is not just the IT organization, this is everyone in the company. They need to understand the new expectations from data, they need to understand what AI enables. At P&G, we have created a multi-tier program with multiple planks, depending on whether we're talking about top executives, middle management, our most junior employees, and across the different domains that I was just talking. Next, we believe that the only way to deliver sustainable results is by investing in platforms. We're hearing about POCs never going to production. We have zero interest in POCs that never go to production. There's no value, there's no growth in those cases. We believe in standardizing practices, defining what are the hard points, what are also the soft points, to give agility, to give flexibility to the different organizations. This may seem as slowing you down in the short term, but it's definitely having an exponential effect. The more use cases, the more data, the more algorithms you want to run. And last but not least, the eternal question of build versus buy. Be very clear on what are the areas where you're going to create those capabilities internally. What is that you're going to insource, you're going to develop yourself, and then be very clear about who you're going to work with and all the rest. And that can be hyperscalers choices, that can be technology stacks choices, that can be system integrator choices. Make sure you find partners that have common values with you, where you have common objectives and develop win-win partnerships. We have many of those, several of them here I see in the room, but as this is a Databricks conference, I have to highlight, of course, Databricks, where we started our journey together back in 2017, and we have clearly found a way to create value for both companies every year and continue to grow. So very happy to be here with all of you and continue that journey together with our friends at Databricks. Thank you very much for your time. I wish you all a very successful summit and looking forward to seeing you around.
Hello, test, 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 can you hear me? Test, 4. What number are you?
Just testing. It works.
You get to wherever you want. You just need to drive on this. They said it. There we go. All right, now we're working. All right, hi everyone. My name is Jennifer Zavacky. I'm leading the partner Fireside chat today. So with the great, everything today for the whole week for the conference, we're excited to have our partners here in our ecosystem, sharing with you today as customers what we can be learning a little bit about, how to take some of the technology you're learning here today into the future. So my role as a partner relationship manager between Databricks account teams and our consulting and SI partners. So first and foremost, thank you for making this forum happen today. Appreciate your partnership. So I'd like to introduce Monarch Vyas from Accenture today. So thank you so much for joining. He along the Accenture team, along with Avanade, here today is one of our partners in the retail forum. So wanted to share a little bit today, ask you a few questions, if you could share with the audience some of the things you're taking away in the field today, what you're seeing in our retail and consumer goods clients, and out, whether it's the challenges, it's the good stuff that's happening. So we wanted to share a little bit with you today. So if you could share a little bit about your role at Accenture, maybe set the stage.
No, absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you for the partnership and the opportunity to be here.
Of course.
We are always really grateful to partner with Databricks. We are doing some exciting work together. I'm Monarch Vyas. I'm the managing director with Accenture, and I lead the data and AI portfolio for retail and CPG here in the West. My team focuses on building AI, now Gen AI applications for functional reinventions in the retail CPG space. Anything from commerce to supply chain to merchandising to stores. We try and help create AI solutions that can truly reinvent these functions.
Great. So Rob talked a little bit about Gen AI, obviously certainly a massive disruptor over the past year, even more. So we'd love to kick off our talk, what you're seeing as key trends currently with your customers.
Yeah, so the first and foremost, it was roughly in the 1950s when the term artificial intelligence was coined. It was about 15 years before that that somebody started asking, can computers start thinking like humans? So it's taken roughly anywhere to that count, 70 to 80 years for AI to get this type of an attention. And it's great to see that, right? So first, let me start with that, right? This is amazing to see. We are now starting to see generative AI not just being discussed in the data and analytics organizations, it's being discussed in boardrooms. It's being discussed in C-suite. I haven't had a conversation, dinner tables, happy hours that I go to where generative AI is not a topic. And primarily that is happening because generative AI has truly been democratizing AI. This is the first time that the learning curve for AI has been very, very normal. You do not need to be a data scientist. You do not need to be a statistician to start using AI. And that's been amazing. Every technology has had evolutionary capabilities. And then there comes a step change moment for technologies. We strongly believe that generative AI is the step change moment in the journey of AI. And that's what's creating the buzz. Nevertheless, there are challenges with this. We are consistently seeing that generative AI, the pace of innovation, the pace at which this technology is moving is way faster than what the business is able to adopt today. The pace of innovation is so fast that the companies are struggling to essentially sustain and keep up with this. It is also creating challenges with how do they essentially get out of the POC loop, right? And we'll speak a little bit more about it, but the last 15 to 18 months, ever since ChatGPT announced itself in November of 2022, a lot of POCs, a lot of awareness, and we now are at the inflection point where we can start scaling to value.
Right. So let's double click into retail and consumer goods, because that's the audience here today. So what are you seeing as some of the kind of like the insights from the field, right? What are you seeing specific to, retailers or consumer goods manufacturers? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, if you ask me, is there any other industry that I would be involved in right now, I would absolutely take a pass at it. At this point in time, retail and CPG is the best place to be, simply because at the heart of our industry is creativity and innovation, right? And generative AI is great at ushering the growth in both of them. Nevertheless, when we see over the last 18 months and some of the future prospects of generative AI, we can typically classify them under three different buckets. Growth and innovation bucket. So we see generative AI as a growth lever. People are reinventing the way operating models and business models can work. Cost and productivity, the obvious place where generative AI is being directed as well. A lot of automation, augmentation capabilities, and experiences, just reimagining experiences. Mm-hmm. Some of the first places where generative AI was aimed at was definitely cost and productivity. So I think Rob spoke about it. A lot of process tasks, a lot of language tasks were the first ones to essentially be undertaken. So we saw a lot of uptick towards functions like finance, like legal and procurement. We are seeing contract management literally in every single organization, seeing a complete disruption because of generative AI and its ability to create content, its ability to compare and summarize a text, and so on and so forth. We are seeing a lot of work in the customer service space and marketing operations space, and these are some of the initial use cases that are scaling. Then we have a lot of co-pilots, co-pilots which can be aimed towards anywhere from planners to your store associates to anybody within the firm, right? Your enterprise people, your coding developers, they're all having a lot of co-pilots. But then the growth and what we now typically call the strategic bets are more towards the core functions. And the core functions are typically functions like product design and creation. They are product innovation, brand, merchandising. These are some of the places where we are seeing massive amounts of strategic bets being placed. I'll give a couple of examples. A product creation is massive. It takes, I was at MIT a couple of weeks ago, and MIT has already prototyped a product that can be created to photochromic dyes that can now have completely reversible designs when exposed to a light source. They are now developing a generative AI app where you can essentially create your own designs, use that to activate the light source on the product of choice. It could be a t-shirt, it could be a shoe, and it will create a net new design which is completely reversible for you. Their idea is to create a business model where the retailers will be able to sell the product for free and charge customers as a subscription fee for that app. It's a completely new business model.
So I'm going to continue buy more online. This isn't good.
Yeah. Some of the other things that we are seeing is product innovation. I mean, a lot of our consumer goods companies have started to live with 80%, 85% failure rates when it comes to coming up with new groundbreaking products into the market. Chemical formulation is not easy, but all of that is something that we are seeing strategic bets being placed on. Store experiences. When you go to a store today, the best that the store associate can do is just point you to the aisle. Mm-hmm. Think about how they can essentially become more knowledgeable about the products in the place without necessarily having to go through the learning curve, because all of that years of knowledge corpus can now be available to them on their fingertips through generative AI engine. So massive amounts of strategic bets as well.
Right. So, we're hearing every day from customers in the conversations we have, they're generating more and more use cases and the potential and what generative AI could be leveraged and used for. So, everyone here at the conference is, looking to get ideas, take information back, hear advice or get things that they can take back to their leadership, back to their teams. If there are a few things that you could advise them, as they're making their plans and drawing out their initiatives, what would you suggest that they take away or think through as they continue their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And every company that I've gone to and spoken over the last 18 months or so have told me that they have a minimum list of 200 use case Excel sheet that is floating around within the firm. Some 300, some 400. So use cases, there's no dearth of it, right? Every function, you talk to them and they will give you use cases, easily 300 to 400 use cases lying around. Where they are struggling is to essentially realize value and scale. The thing with the pace of innovation, and because this is such a widely discussed topic, most of the companies, the leadership have already started asking for value with the people who are working on this, and the people who are working on this are still experimenting. And that's where the big challenge starts. We very strongly believe that the first thing, and I think we heard it in the P&G session, the first thing that you want to start working towards is setting a right ambition. And ambition could be making sure that, take a function, right? And what do you essentially want to achieve over the next 3 to 5 years if the prophecy of generative AI were to hold true? We have organizations that are essentially saying, I'm going to, in the next 3 years, reduce the time to market for new product launches by 40%. That's the ambition I'm going to work towards, right? I'm essentially going to crunch down the time it takes from product design for an apparel retail company to actual product launch into the market and crunch it down. If that's the ambition, then we can start working towards use cases in support of that rather than just jumping on from one use case to the other, the loudest voice in the room, the first person who had the money, et cetera, right? So it's critical to essentially set the ambition. Once you've set the ambition, I would typically say, think about generative AI from a 3-pillar strategy. The first pillar, and the most important one as well, is setting up the right strategy, vision, and roadmap for this. It's extremely important to essentially understand what your strategy is, how are you essentially going to go after generative AI, what's the value framework. AI has been known for being great at value estimation, but not great at value realization and measurement, right? So how do you essentially set up the proper testing mechanisms, the proper measurement techniques, the proper value framework associated to that, and think about operating model changes. If the prophecy of generative AI were to hold true, some of your functions will look completely different in the next 3 to 5 years. How are you thinking about operating models, processes, people? So that is the strategic part of it. Include literacy in that as well, right? Just because you essentially have this capability does not necessarily mean your business users know how to use it or what are the right questions to answer. So elevating the literacy is critical. The second pillar that I would typically focus on is the execution pillar. Now, obviously, we spoke a lot about the POC and pilot executions, but then we also have to start thinking about risk assessments and responsible AI principles, right? We are now being exposed to, because of generative AI, a completely new set of responsible AI challenges as well, right? We are now talking about plagiarism constraints, and we are talking about sensitive information being floating around. We are talking about vendor lock-in situations. We have so many different risks that have just opened up. And then the one important portion in the second pillar is change management. We have an organization that essentially launched M365 Copilot as a part of their weekly digest. It was just one of the bullet points in the weekly digest, and then they just expected everybody in the organization to know how to use it, right? That's not how most of the adoptions will work. So focus on change. And then the final pillar that I would mention is the foundational pillar. And the foundational pillar is where we focus on the right platform, the right data readiness, the right talent, the right upskilling, and the right partnership models, right? If not already, I'm guaranteeing you that in the next 3 to 4 months, every one of the vendors that you have in your space is going to become an AI or a generative AI vendor, right? How do you essentially understand how to make sense out of that? How do you rationalize that portfolio, decide when to use out-of-the-box capabilities, when do you build your own, how do you partner is going to be critical. So think about it in those 3 pillar strategy, and I think you will be able to work towards the right ambition and break the POC loop.
Awesome, thank you. So that pretty much wraps everything. I would encourage you all, as Alfredo had shared, develop partnerships, right? Not only with the tech partners and the technology that you leverage, but also, an ecosystem of SIs and consulting firms. They really are able to see so much across different clients and can bring those experiences to you. So we're super proud of our ecosystem, such smart, talented individuals here to make you successful. So thank you. Go check them out on the expo floor as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Somebody, oh, 4. They got me mic'd here. They got me mic'd. Thank you.
And Jen for that. So
Take me off it. Can you hear me? You have me up.
about this part. Got to spend a little bit of time with these individuals and
I think you have
talk
me
about
on.
much work, but got to know each other a little bit, which was a lot of fun. So just quickly would like to introduce who's on the panel and then get right into the discussion. So first we have Karla Hrabar, who is the head of Europe for, should I stop there or read the rest of it? So head of Europe for data analytics and digital transformation for Unilever. So thank you. Stefan Househam, who is the VP of IT strategy, architecture, data, and AI. I think I got all of them in there. And then Soboyejo, who is the head of VP of software engineering for 8451, and Shahmeer Mirza, who is the director of data and AI and ML for 7-Eleven. I spoke to one of your past CEOs or CIOs this morning, and he was very complimentary of you. So as you heard in Rob's discussion, you heard in Alfredo's discussion, you just heard here recently, the changes in AI over the last 2 years have been pretty significant in taking the discussion around strategy from a departmental level, IT-led discussion, really to being a board level and C-suite discussion. And wanted to ask the panel 2 questions, and Stefan, we'll start with you. How's the AI conversation changed your discussions with your leadership, first of all? And then second, how have you found success in helping these groups understand and adapt to what's possible and what's real so that they can weave that into their strategy?
It's been a journey, but a very fast journey. Maybe 18 months ago, it was a lot of curiosity. Obviously, a lot in the press, a lot of questions. Hey, should we be getting into this thing? And say, we already have an AI team, we do these things. And there's a lot of uncertainty. That curiosity, if you fast forward 12 months, now is changed to not only being something that the C-suite is talking about in the meetings, the board is talking about in their meetings, but now as part of our goals and our delivery and our commitments in terms of leveraging AI pretty much in every corner of our business. So to govern our agenda, we actually have a cross-functional sort of task force, we call it, sort of a governance forum, which has every major business function. It's led by Jane Lauder, who's the granddaughter of Estée Lauder as our chief data officer. And it's from that belief that there's pretty much no corner in the business that cannot benefit from AI. And that journey was a very purposeful journey to get from curiosity to kind of all over the place. And it started with some experiments, the famous POCs, a couple of those. But when it really started getting traction is, as was been mentioned a few times today, is tying value to it. So starting to take sort of a business case view to it is like, it's not about what this tool can do as a tool, but what's the business benefit? And when we started proving not the technical POCs, but the business POCs, and it started to show up as real, that's when we started to get real momentum. And the top executives are super excited. One way we keep them educated is we have reverse mentors that teach them the day-to-day usage of Gen AI to try to incorporate it into their day-to-day work life, their office life, their home life, so that it just becomes a natural part of every conversation rather than something very exotic.
Oh, fantastic. Sho, what would you add there for 8451?
Yeah, definitely. For those of you that don't know 8451, we focus mainly on data and data analytics and data science and a wholly owned subsidiary of Kroger. So in our case, we've been living the data and AI journey for quite some time. The understanding of within the C-suite and the boardroom has always been there in terms of how this contributes to the business strategy. What has fundamentally changed are 2 things. One is understanding the ability now to actually scale, optimize, and accelerate the things we've been doing already before. And secondly, the need for us to really lean into how we govern our data as well as AI. So think about responsibly delivering that value to our customers. The risks that we talked about already by Alfredo and Mark as well. Those are things that there's a fundamental understanding that we need to get better at and we need to learn more in terms of how can we do this at more scale and do it more responsibly than we're doing it before.
And Karla, having global scope and lots of different regulations that you have to deal with as well, how would you, any different spin or any different aspects that you would add to what Stefan and Sho said?
It's similar to start with because our board is actually quite versed in data and they understand data, they understand the power of AI. I think the difference that we're seeing in the last year or 6 months is the acceleration or that they want to achieve in the business to really embed data and AI in everything that we do. Mm-hmm. And there are two things that are absolutely critical for us. One is to upskill everyone in the organization in using data, using AI, and becoming totally AI-driven. And augmenting processes to make sure that we can actually embed AI in our day-to-day tasks. And the second one we talked about, many POCs, is to really focus on very few, 1, 2, 3, very big AI initiatives that will deliver the big impact in productivity that we can scale across the whole organization and growth. And what we ask as a DNA function in turn of our board is actually to support it, drive it, evangelize it, make it personal to them, because that's the only way that we're going to drive change if it is fully embedded from the top all the way into the organization.
How do you, when you say make it personal, how do you make, what are some ways that you do that?
I love your idea about the reverse mentoring. We haven't done this, so I might pitch that one. It's every time we have a town hall, a meeting with the board, data and I is a part of that conversation. And making it the norm, making it something that we talk about as often or more often than we talk of, innovation and sales and performance. AI being a part of that conversation is absolutely critical. It has to become a part of our DNA. It has to be what we do every day rather than something that we dip into and dip out.
Thank you. And then Shahmeer, anything you would add?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us was at first explaining to everyone, hey, we've been doing machine learning and AI for quite some time, and helping the business understand that there are pockets of very advanced usage already. And that the groups that are now all of a sudden becoming interested are the ones who hadn't been exposed to that quite as much. And so a lot of our strategy has been focused on educating executives that AI is nothing without data, all right? And focusing first and foremost on data quality and data modeling and building out an initial set of data products for the users who are least technically savvy to start out. That's one, so data products. Second is really thinking through our platform capabilities in terms of machine learning and AI itself. So how do I make it easy for the data scientists and analysts to deploy from a notebook to get to production, right? They're not gonna sit there and be machine learning engineers. So how do I bridge that gap? So we've made a lot of investments there and we're making progress. We're nowhere near Fulbright, but we have some initial work really going well in that space. And then the third thing is really the change management portion and focusing on education and engagement. Really, it's creating a COE around machine learning and AI and then analytics and bringing along business partners. So we're operating very much as a data mesh now and moving more and more towards federating using Zero ETL and Unity Catalog and having those partners join us here actually at the AI Summit. So we have 2 core business partners that have shown to be early adopters in actually using machine learning and using some more advanced BI tools. So we said, come along with us to really build a grassroots movement across the business and drive some of that adoption with their direct leadership and stakeholders.
Do you feel like that's helped you as you have those C-level conversations? We had dinner a couple of months ago and we were talking a little bit about this. What recommendations would you have for people of how to simplify some of the complex challenges that you have so that your C-level really understands and knows how to get behind it and invest?
Yeah, I think step one with that is helping them understand really what data is available today and the amount of effort it takes to get that data modeled in a way to make it usable. And then also that most of the use cases for AI that drive true ROI and business value are actually the low-hanging fruit. Boosted trees will get you 90% of the way there for most of your problems. You don't need to throw neural networks or Gen AI at everything, but that Gen AI can be a very powerful tool for organizing unstructured data. And so really taking them on that journey saying, yes, Gen AI will increase productivity in tremendous ways, but also, most importantly, it's allowing us to organize our information and drive closer and closer towards that holy grail of natural language querying. I think everyone wants to be able to have a frontline worker or analyst sit at their desk, ask a question that came from the EVP and have it answered instantly, as opposed to running 4 different ETL pipelines to aggregate data, hit a button and say, yep, it's in this dashboard or get this specific metric. So.
Thank you. And then Karla, a primary way that to help make business impact is really enabling frontline workers to engage with your customers and also with partners. So how does Gen AI and data sharing change how you bring capabilities to your organization?
So I love this question because I am passionate about data and AI and how we use it to drive a business impact. As you know, my history, I come from a business background, so this is absolutely my passion. So when we think about data and AI and Gen AI, one of the initial things, and we talked about it before, is how do we use it to free up the time of the frontline workers to actually focus on what's really important, which is spending time with our customers and getting closer to our consumers. And this is the real unlock, because you think about of the tasks that we do in the business, and I lead a big team in Europe, and we work up with big teams in sales, marketing, finance, etc. And no one has joined Unilever because they really like inputting a promotional, promotion into the system or a promotional retro. They join Unilever because they believe in our purpose. They want to do really impactful things with their career. And if we can minimize and automate all of those repetitive tasks that we do every day, we still do them every day, that actually frees up the time that we can invest in where it matters, in building our future. And when we think about that, what we are really working on is combining the power of the machine and the power of people. So the power of machine, we talked about it, I don't need to repeat it. It's all about the speed and the accuracy that we can get, that we can't replicate easily with the humans. When we think about where the real power comes is the expertise, the knowledge that we have in the organization. We talked about non-structured and semi-structured data. This is a big opportunity for us to really codify the experience that we have in the organization. We talked about the presentations, from the phone calls you had with your retailer, and he told you something that we want to make available to the rest of the organization in a real-time, scaled-up way, because that combination of the power of the machine and the power of the human experience that we have in Unilever is actually the point of difference that we want to bring. And this is what we want our future-fit organization to look like, and we are building it now. And if I put it into perspective, and you said the power of data, it starts with data. And I think this is one of the really important strategic assets that we have in building, to have clean, accurate, accessible data across the organization and the capability to use it. That's the number one thing, that's the foundation of everything. Otherwise, Gen AI is just going to be, expensive toy that we can't get the value out of. So that's absolutely number one thing that we're doing. And driving that capability in the organization is critical to embedding Gen AI and getting the benefit out of it. And then you mentioned it, change management. 50% of everything that we're doing is actually how do we get the organization to stop doing what you've done, not for weeks and months, but for decades, and implement a new way of working. And change management is the make or break of data and Gen AI. So that is a massive focus of the organization.
Oh, you look like you were ready to jump out of your seat there.
So the only thing that I wanted to add to that is I think branding is incredibly important when working with a business, because they latch on to terms that make sense, right? And so I use the 3 C's whenever I talk about what we provide in terms of data, which is cleaned, curated, certified data sets. So if everyone's using clean, curated, certified data sets, they'll be able to actually use the power of AI and machine learning actively and in all honesty, we're using Unity Catalog as a way to federate more of our medallion architecture, right? And so this concept of data products is clean, curated, and certified is catching on quickly with more and more groups saying, hey, I want that. I want one of those data sets, and wanting to be participants in governance and stewardship, which can be really hard to do if anyone's tried to get people to be data stewards.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add that on the unstructured data side, we're in the beauty industry, so we have huge libraries of just content, whether it's research on a specific ingredient or testing of our products and the results to consumer analytics, et cetera. All of this sits in PowerPoints and documents, and they get read, presented, and then they gather dust. Gen AI has really helped us dig into that treasure trove and kind of put it on the front lines and be used for day-to-day decisions, which is a good thing. There's obviously risks with that. Some of that information may be confidential, or some of that information may be correct, but needs to be put in the right context before it's used. So that's one of the things that we're struggling with not struggling with, but working on actively, is to figure out how do we find the right balance that, okay, there's access to more information now, but how do we put the right governance to make sure that it's used in the right context and it's used sensibly?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, they've said a lot already. In fact, I'm so excited to be part of this panel because you're all talking my language. The one thing I'll probably add is, from our standpoint, we think in terms of how do we make data accessible, actionable, and secure for all our stakeholders, from our customers to our partners and our internal teams. And there are two key things, approaches that we think about from that standpoint. Thankfully, we're able to use Databricks as a unified data platform, and it provides an opportunity for us to be able to integrate seamlessly with data sources from across the organization. So essentially breaking the data silos. Talk about data in PowerPoint, you talked about data all around the organization, but now the ability for you to actually be able to pull that all together is wonderful. In addition to that is the actual data sharing part. So we talked about Delta Share earlier. The fact that I don't have to move data to be able to get the value out of it is really powerful. Every time you move data, you increase the risk and the likelihood of something going wrong with it. So for us, when we think about being able to maximize the value of our data and help frontline workers be able to serve customers and consumers, is being able to give them that capability, the platform, the essential things to make data accessible and to make it secure and to make it actionable.
Thank you. And when you think about taking that now from frontline workers and getting it to some specific areas of the business, so take supply chain, for instance, there's always been logistical challenges that have only been compounded. There was an article I read by one of our partners that kind of talked about that in detail. But you're seeing disruptions, we saw it at the height in COVID of things that were just totally outside of our control. But how are you leveraging data and AI to streamline the pathways and optimize inventory management for cost at a global scale, but also in very dynamic market conditions? So, we've talked about all of the brands and localization, and you have that in the different ways that you go to market. How do you all think about that?
Well, we've used AI for a long time to do forecasting, and we've always experienced that the AI tends to be more accurate than a human in forecasting what we need to purchase, what we need to ship, where we need to ship it, etc. But it's been a big, heavy process, and it needs really deep expertise to get done. So it gets only applied to certain things, a certain time horizon, or certain products, and certain elements of that supply chain network. Now that AI is so much more accessible, it's now applied to more time frames, so not just the strategic view, but immediately right now I've got some extra inventory, what's the best place to kind of reallocate it? But also all the satellite processes related to supply chain. It's not just about making it and shipping it, there's all these other little things around it that make it more efficient. So I really think that AI has completely changed that by lowering the bar and basically make it so much easier to adopt into every part of the supply chain process, which is a good response to the increased volatility that we're seeing in this space.
Karla?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about...
No, go ahead.
I want to talk about resilience here, resilience of our supply chain. And I'll just paint a picture of how complex Unilever is. We serve 150 million customers every day. We have more than 400 products and more than 100,000 SKUs. We source all the raw materials for every single of 100,000 SKUs ourselves, and we ship it to our customers. So you can imagine that this is absolutely insanely complex. And what we've been using and what we're really proud of is we created a complex graph network that actually has 40 billion nodes and edges that enables us to understand the whole journey from the raw material to the finished product with full visibility and full clarity. And that gives us a huge amount of resilience when something unexpected happened that you talked about. When there's a shortage of cocoa, or there's a social uprising and it's going to affect your supply chain, we can track exactly what raw material finished products is going to be affecting, what customer the product is designated for, and then proactively create actions to actually mitigate the risk of that. And this is only possible with data and AI. And this is kind of one of those amazing use cases that you kind of wonder how on earth did you manage to do anything like this before we had data and AI. But it absolutely shows how in an extremely complex organization, we can have very clear visibility every day, every hour of the day, so we can be resilient in our supply chain.
So I think for us as a retailer, when you operate a lot of different stores in a lot of different places, especially if you've been to a 7-Eleven, each store is slightly different. The franchisee or the actual store operator, if it's corporate, is taking a unique approach to meet how that specific store's demand and everything are built out in the assortment. So we've built a lot of models for forecasting, inventory levels, and also shelf life of the products that are fresh foods, for example. So you have a lot of different models running for every product. And then on top of that, we have first day assortment. So when you open a new store, what is the right set of assortment based on surrounding information from stores and capabilities? But one thing I wanted to call out that's really interesting in forecasting data is we have the rare data set of a black swan event now with COVID, right? So you had a moment when there was entire supply chain disruption. Historically, it's been incredibly difficult to have a representative data set to be able to model forecasting in a true black swan event. And so one thing that we're starting to look at is not just when we exclude, COVID, you have pretty smooth forecasting, all of that applies, but how can we start leveraging things like black swan events like COVID to predict how to handle inventory management during events when they're radically different from standard distributions?
Great. And before we move on to one of the wrap-up questions, Karla, you talk about 100,000 SKUs, and you talk about the complexity of sourcing all of the materials and then all of the things that go into that. When you think about sustainability, how do you use data and AI from a traceability standpoint, ethical sourcing? How do you use data and AI to add that layer into an already very complex environment?
That's actually very close to my heart because I really care about sustainability and the power that we have to really improve the sustainability and the environmental impact. And I think we, as such a big supplier, really have the opportunity to create the standards, not just for us, but for other suppliers and the industry in terms of how do we measure and how do we improve sustainable and environmental impact. Which means that we need to have full clarity in how we measure it, but not just for us, for our suppliers and the suppliers of our suppliers. Because to your point, it's a very complicated network that we're working. It's well publicized what we are doing with trying to reduce deforestation or understanding where our products come from. As I said, you can read about it. It really shows the power of data and AI, how we use mobile signals, satellite data, and geospatial data to really understand where our product is sourced from. But one thing that I think I feel very strongly about is we're using that same data to predict where future deforestation may happen, and then sharing that data with the other suppliers, with the governments and NGOs to actually protect and take action before it has happened. And I think this is really the power that we have in using data and AI to understand what the future brings and how we can collectively take action to protect our forests and to protect our environment.
Oh, fantastic. It's one of the great things about being in this industry, of being able to have an impact, like I said, on the environment, but also friends, family. It's very relatable industry. So as we wrap up here, just ask, Sho, I'll come to you first on this question. The folks in the audience who may be starting their journey or early in their journey of data and AI, what are some lessons or some pitfalls or some things that you really wish you would have done more of or done earlier? Like what would you share about the journey that you've been through at 8451?
Sure, thanks. I think a lot of things have already been said today. I think there are 3 or 4 things that come to mind that I think are worth maybe recapping. One is that oftentimes when it comes to change, it involves culture and involves people. The technology itself is not too complicated in terms of how you might apply it. It has more to do with really understanding how do you change what you do today and how do you adapt to it. So there's a change management aspect and there's the people aspect of things. There's a cultural adjustment into how we do work today and how it should look like tomorrow. I think the other thing that Shahmeer actually emphasized is the question about data itself. I mean, AI and everything you do with data is all based on data. And if your data is no good, then your models are no good. But one of the things that fundamentally has to change is thinking of data not just as an asset, but as a product. And there's a difference between that. If you think about any asset you have, you're thinking about something that you're going to derive value from in the future. You're not thinking about a customer, you're not thinking about the consumer. But if you think of data as a product, then it's more of a customer-centric view. You're thinking about how do you curate it in the proper way. And then lastly, you're thinking about how can I get immediate activation out of it. And I think one of the things that Alfredo talked about, and I think, I skipped your name now, also mentioned, the gentleman that was up for the fire chart, also mentioned, is really this importance of data literacy and also AI literacy. When I think about learning, I distinguish between literacy and competency. And at the very least, in our world today, even if you don't get data and AI competency, at the very least, literacy is very important. Part of that is understanding the place of governance, data and AI governance. How do I manage my data? How do I get it to a place where it's good enough to use? What are the fundamental ways that I need to deliver these capabilities, especially AI, in a responsible way? The last thing I maybe want to highlight is the fact that our customer journey is evolving. And a lot of you that probably were listening to the news and Apple's changes and how they're going to integrate some of the changes into their new releases really emphasizes the fact that customer expectation on new technologies and capability is changing and is evolving. The customer journey is evolving, but not dramatically so that the pain points are not the same. The pain points are still the same. People still want convenience. People still want things faster. People still want things personalized. And so when we're thinking about applying changes, we don't want to forget about how we're taking these things to apply to our customer experiences. And you want to think about how you want to do that in baby steps or whatever the transformation may be. Those are the things that come to mind.
Oh, great. Stefan?
I think I have 2 opposite lessons learned. One is that this is a paradigm shift. Things are just so different, and if we don't hit the reset button on a lot of how we've been thinking about the opportunity, the challenges, the work, the how, you just won't be able to embrace it. So, typical comment which I made myself earlier right now was, well, we've done AI for a long time. Yeah, but that lesson learned from that world is not the same as the lesson now. The user is different, the use case is different, the implementation is different. So really hitting a reset button on kind of what is AI now, I think really helps. And then the opposite lesson learned of that is some old truths still hold true. Change management still is, if not even more important than before. Understanding the business case behind what you're trying to do, what's the business value you're driving, how are you going to test it? How are you going to keep it secure? So there's some old truths that still hold true, and then there's some other things where you just have to completely hit the reset button and rethink what this is all about.
Great.
I'll let you close out, so I'll go next. So 2 things. One, and this is very Databricks specific, but I would have started with Unity Catalog, effort way earlier, and making sure that we're very strongly considering that as part of our core efforts with data modeling, because it does really enable a lot of the downstream capabilities and future state capabilities that keep rolling out. So we're going through a lot of that effort now. Second thing is really when we're talking about change management, historically, a lot of IT groups have a mentality of if you build it, they will come. Like, I'm just going to go build it and I'm not going to talk to the customer a ton, or I'll build this dashboard, it'll mostly be what they want, and then I'll just send it off. But really getting out a lean version of it early and really truly thinking about data as a product in the sense of lean prototyping and getting a version out even with data sets and data quality. So as you're building a data product, put it in front of the stakeholder and have them say, where does it disagree? Because you may think that you're chasing the right rabbit and trying to squash where the data disagrees with what they think it should be, but it may be completely off, right? So really aligning early on to get that feedback from the stakeholders for your data products.
Great. Karla, we'll give you the last word.
The last words, I was going to mention 5 tips that I can share. You all actually shared quite a lot of what I was going to say, but change management is absolutely critical. That is the make or break, as we talked before. Number 2 thing is capability, driving the learning and driving the capability in the organization, and getting the senior management to evangelize it and driving from the top is absolutely critical. This capability is something that needs to be innate to everyone in the organization. So that is the focus of driving the capability, and upskilling is absolutely critical. The third thing we talked about a lot, but moving from POCs to creating strategic asset in data is absolutely critical. And I think there are so many POCs happening, and actually, spending time on the non-sexy part, creating the data foundations, working on the structured and non-structured data, which is not really visible in the organization. It's absolutely critical and really worth the time investment into it. 2 more that I have is measure everything. Measure the quantity and the quality of usage, NPS, and most importantly, the value that we are delivering from data, and then communicate it. We talked about, creating as a product. I actually talk about create it as a brand. Create a really exciting communication strategy to share the value that we are delivering as a data analytics organization, how we are fueling the whole organizational growth and productivity, and get the recognition for it. So I think very strong communication campaign is absolutely critical. And the last one we always laugh about because it's quite intense, but we say burn the boats. Don't allow the company to go back to what we always used to do. And as a part of change management, this is absolutely critical. So really understand what the company used to do and then decommission it once you have the new tools. Don't give them that fallback that I'll go back to the Excel sheet that I always used to do, because if it's not there, they will have to move to the new way of working. So do it with intent.
She said burn the boat, not burn it down. So I think there's some people that want to just don't misquote that. Well, thank you all very much for your preparation for this. I know each of you had to go through a lengthy legal review with your respective teams, but really appreciate the insights. Hopefully you'll be at the happy hour for people to grab you and ask some clarifying questions, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, no kidding. I am the clicker here. Hey guys, we got one thing quick, if you don't mind. We got just a few awards. We'll go through it. If you want to leave, absolutely. We won't give away the free surprise or anything. But I just want to take a moment. Again, thank you all for coming. There are some awards I want to go through just real quickly. They're great, amazing partners. We have over 400 data partners in our ecosystem right now, thousands of sources. AccuWeather, I don't know if you're in the room, Data Partner of the Year, but we do have a couple that are in the room. No surprise to a lot of people in here, for the 3rd year in a row, we're going to have to do an emeritus rule on this. Trident's won our SI Partner of the Year. They've actually been an amazing partner. This is going to get harder and harder. You heard Accenture on stage and how great they're doing. Capgemini is here, Danone is somewhere. We got great partners that are helping our customers to do amazing things in there. So expect a different company up there next year, because they're all gunning for it. The other one, you just heard a speaker. So Unilever, Karla didn't know, won the Industry Customer of the Year for retail and consumer goods. Unilever's been doing amazing stuff. If you look at the journey, you hear Karla start to talk about it, and the transformation of where they started just a few years ago, and the amount of change that they've gone through. Catch her at happy hour, ask her about the journey. It's not just the technology, it's the organization, it's the learnings. What did she go through? She's managed this just in an amazing way with her entire team. Love working with the Unilever team every time I go to London. So amazing. Thank you. Excuse me. And honestly, we have Data Team Finalist Awards. These are going to be announced later this week up on the main stage. And we have 2 finalists here. Unilever, again, is a finalist, and our friends at Ahold Delhaize are another finalist there. So stay tuned for this. But thank you. Congratulations to all the winners this year. Go enjoy happy hour. We'll see you around. Ask a lot of questions. Again, have a great session. Great rest of the week.